the immune system can last up to 6 hours, so it's important to exercise regularly. An active school environment directly contributes to better behaviour and improved results. But more importantly, it creates children who move around more, who are healthier, happier, better behaved and more engaged. Active children make strong students.
Okay, I want to stop that share. Okay, we'll move on. Let me move on to the next slide. So most of us can recall rich and vibrant play experiences from our childhood, memories of climbing trees, chasing our dreams with our friends, endless days of freedom, exploring secret places and the unfolding of time. Physical play broadens our capacity to grow, and it's essential to a child's optimal development. Now that may be something that correlates with you, that kind of childhood of running around and exploring. Sadly, we're seeing that a lot of early childhood children, so remember that's children under the age of 7, are not having opportunities to be able to explore and have those same community play opportunities that we had, for quite a few reasons. There's quite a few factors that are influencing that, from family dynamics to urban areas to screen time to changes in the opportunities for that kind of play. It may be changes in the development of that urban area. It might be changes in the park space that's available. It might be the fear culture. It might be that actually isn't safe. So all of those things will impact on children's opportunity to explore community play opportunities. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because we need to make sure that children have a really positive relationship with movement, and it really does start in those first 6 years of life. So what we need to do is find out when they come to us, whether we're in an early years setting, whether we're in a maintained nursery or reception class, we need to find out where they are. We need to meet them where they are. And one of the simple little assessments that I do when I have my first cohort of children is this little rhyme, because it enables me to do a very brief sort of assessment in terms of their physicality and their listening skills and their attention and their engagement, to be able to know where they are in terms of that. So I'm just going to demonstrate the activity, and I want you to have a look, and I want you to tell me, what can you learn from this activity? Okay, so I'm going to stop the share. And you can pop it in the chat or you can speak out loud. But what will I particularly assess? Okay, are we ready? Teddy bear, turn around. Teddy bear, touch the ground. Teddy bear, show your shoes. That's when we show our toes and the other foot. Teddy bear, that will do. Teddy bear, climb the stairs. Teddy bear, say your prayers. Teddy bear, turn out the light. Click. Teddy bear, say good night. And then we can go down onto the floor and curl up. So, what am I assessing? Coordination, balance, listening and attention skills. Fabulous. What else? Balance, core strength. Fabulous. What else?
You did the crossing, didn't you?
Crossing the midline.
Yeah.
I did. Understanding of language. Yep. What else?
Spatial awareness.
Spatial awareness. Vestibular. Spinning. Dominance. So which hand did they use to turn out the light? Which foot did they lift up first? Using alternate feet, so different levels of laterality. We had homolaterality, we had bilaterality, we had cross-lateral, and we had lateral. All of those different sizes. Mobility, absolutely. So a very, very simple 45-second assessment just to see where the children are. will really paint that lovely picture for you, and then we can look at ways to extend that later. Let's move on. If you do have any questions or comments, just press the raise your hand or come off mute. That's absolutely fine. So we learn more physical skills in our first 5 years than at any other time in our lives. Even athletes, they learn more physical skills in the first 5 years than they do when they become an athlete. Therefore, it's important that those young children have lots of time to practice and develop those skills. A moving child is a learning child. The same part of the brain that processes learning also processes movement, the cerebellum. Yet, according to O'Connor and Daly, in early childhood settings, physical development is often ignored. Physical development tends to be taken for granted, that it happens naturally. Not moving and sitting still is often overpraised. The focus is too often on the brain rather than the body because of academic priorities, and physical activity is seen as a chore. So I'm going to put that out to everybody. Do you agree? Do you see this in your settings? Do you see any of those? Maybe you see some more than others. Maybe you don't see any. Talk to me. And in terms of early childhood, what we see, especially when in maintained nurseries and reception, we do see that more formal structured learning happening, and we see that physical development, well, it's a bit like crowd control. I was a reception teacher for many years, and when you've got 32 children in your class, it's easier to give direct inputs when they're all still. But actually, we know that it's really hard. It's one of the most complex things we can ask of our body when we're 4 and 5 is to be still, because it requires fully developed vestibular, proprioceptive system and full body muscle control and tension. So it is really very, very challenging. But I think in terms of early years settings, I think what we see a lot is that free flow provision, children outside, exploring, that they're actually all getting their physical activity recommendations. But we know from research that that's not true. There are children who just don't like being outside, who won't be getting that provision, even though it is free flow. They'd prefer to be in the home corner or sitting maybe outside in the sand pit in the covered area. So we do need to think about whether children are getting enough of their provision. One way we can do that is just through observation, observing our children. And physical activity is seen as a chore. I do see this a lot, where people don't like going outside. Educators don't often like going outside, especially in this weather, that there's a bit of a sigh, there's a bit of a and actually children do pick up on that. So we do need to be conscious about that relationship that we have with being outdoors and with movement as well. Now, I wanted to share with you the research from the Education Endowment Foundation. So if you look at the Physical Development Toolkit and the Evidence Store, you will see that they delivered a range of studies, and that the studies showed that on average young children who take part in physical development interventions, so that's where we really prioritise this as a prime area of learning, that they can make around 5 additional months progress in cognitive outcomes, which when we're thinking about our 3 and 4 year olds is huge. So it really does underpin those other areas of learning and development. Recent studies also suggest that interactions with other children are a key component of motor development. And more importantly, the lack of these interactions, as experienced during the pandemic, has a detrimental effect on the developing motor system. And many of us saw that a few years ago when we were working through COVID, and we saw the impact that was having on children's social, emotional and motor competence. But also increasing the diversity of children's daily physical activities. Not only the amount and the intensity is important for lifelong physical activity participation and thereby health promotion. Because in terms of physical development and PE, what we want children to have is, when they grow up into adulthood, is to have that really positive relationship with physical activity. And part of my master's research at CREC was looking at something called salutogenic profiling, when that relationship happens in the first 6 years of our life. And it happens through those relationships with others who are active. And we saw on that video Children with an active parent are 50% more likely to be active. If they have 2 active parents in the family, that goes up to 70%. So think about your role as an educator. Think about how often the children spend with you and the duration throughout Monday to Friday, and how you can help develop that positive relationship with movement and physical activity. Okay, walk around the room. I'm going to be your guinea pig. So what I'd like you to do is I am going to remove my spectacles, and this is another little rhyme. I use this as an assessment. I also use this to look at ways to incorporate different areas of movement. So I'm going to sing the song, and then what I'd like you to do is put different movements in the chat, and I'm going to include your movements in my activity. So it goes like this. Are we ready? So you can join me if you want to. It's up to you. Walk around the room, walk around the room, E-I-I-D-O, walk around the room, march around the room, march around the room, E-I-I-D-O, march around the room. What have we got? Let me put my glasses on. I knew it was going to be jump. Here we go. Jump around the room, jump around the room, E-I-I-T-O, jump around the room. What have I got next? I'm going to pick one. Hop. Oh, hop. Getting me active this morning, aren't you? Hop around the room, hop around the room, E-I-I-T-O, hop around the room. Tiptoe, tiptoe around the room, tiptoe around the room, E-I-I-D-O, tiptoe around the room. We've got stretch up tall and stamp, but do you know what? I'm going to go rogue because I'm going down. We're going to crawl, crawl around the room, crawl around the room, E-I-I-D-O, crawl around the room. And I'm going even more rogue. I'm going to roll, roll around the room, roll around the room, E-I-I-D-O, roll around the room. Next one, last one. Dance, come on then. Dance around the room. Dance around, it's a bit of a Scottish dance there, like a Highland fling. E-I-I-D-O, dance around the room. Okay, lovely. And so when I deliver this for children, I get them to come up with the ideas. They will be far more abstract than yours, so let them have that autonomy to create those movements. It was fun, with many opportunities to explore movement. And you can hear I'm a little bit out of breath, rolling around on the floor there. Okay, fabulous. Let's move on. So we've got walk around the room and we've got teddy bear, teddy bear. What's the answer to this question? Back in the chat room, please. What is the answer? 180, 180, 180, 180. Fabulous. I thought I might put you off the scent with the video because it said 60 minutes, but that's for over 5s. That's right. So it's 180 minutes of physical activity for children who are aged under 5. And then it goes up for 3 to 5s. Within that 180 minutes, we want to see that 60 minutes of something called MVPA, which is moderate to vigorous physical activity. So going back to, somebody kindly shared that they have 5 minutes of the physical activity outside, which is great. But do you think all of your children are reaching these recommendations? Remember, it's not all your responsibility because yours is just that time during the day. So think about this as a full 24 hours. So what do we think? Let's have some feedback. Do we think our children are reaching these levels? The last time we had a large-scale study was back in 2018, before COVID, and 91% of children weren't reaching those recommendations. So 91%, and that was before COVID. And we know that physical development levels dropped during COVID, and they're still waiting to come back to those pre-levels. So it's not looking good, but what can we do? We need to just find ways to embed movement throughout the day. I love the 5 minutes of directed learning before they go off for independent play. I love that idea. Bring those action rhymes to life, make them physical. What's the time, Mr. Wolf is a great one for getting children running and chasing. Often just taking equipment, portable equipment and stimuli outside into that area and varying that can encourage more children to be active as well. Let me continue. Any other questions on that or reflections that you'd like to share? No? Okay, let me continue. Now, what I wanted to just bring your attention to is this term physical activity that I'm circling here, because I did a research study at CREC with 212 reception teachers, nursery and reception teachers, and I asked them to define what physical activity was within their provision. And I had answers that ranged from the daily mile to picking up sequins with tweezers. Now, physical activity, defined by the World Health Organization, means whole body energy expenditure. So it's when the whole body is moving. So it can't be anything seated, it can't be anything, can't be laying in bed unless you're moving your whole body. So it is that whole body energy expenditure. Now, Baroness Frances de Souza said that in the Physical Activity and Health Report for the Children's Alliance, that without effective coordinated measures led by government, we run the risk that the next generation of adults will be the least healthy in living memory. And interestingly, the correlation there is that the NHS spends only 1% of the budget on prevention. So it's up to all of the other stakeholders to think about ways that we can develop that relationship, that healthy, positive relationship with physical activity in movement. And as Sally said, screens are playing a big part. The latest data from Play England says that children aged 3 to 5, their average daily screen time is 3 hours. Ironically, the same amount of physical activity that they should be getting. And by the time a child is 8, they've spent over 1 year of their life on screens. So it is having a massive impact on the opportunities for play. So I just want to talk to you about the key fundamental movement skills that we would like to see children developing when they start to get to age 4 and 5. We want to be thinking about these fundamental movement skills. We have something called body management, where we think about balance, coordination, rolling, climbing, and then we have locomotor, which is running, jumping, hopping. We often consider that to be travelling, and then object control, where we're catching, kicking, throwing or striking. So we want to have very simple ways to consider how we can have these opportunities to move. So one of the really simple ways that I introduce object control is thinking about bubbles, popping bubbles. That's the first introduction to something called temporal awareness, which is a concept of object control, where we're starting to judge time, distance and space coherently, so children can think about object control. Obviously, locomotor and body management can happen in the play environment, in climbing apparatus, in outside in the environment, maybe inside as well, playing games with the children. So we can have lots of opportunities for those. Now, what I'd like you all to do is go and get a piece of paper. Can you all grab a piece of paper? I've got a paper bag, but grab a piece of paper as quickly as you can. A4, please, if you can. Lovely. And I'd like you all to stand up. And I would like you to crush that piece of paper using just one hand. Crush that piece of paper. Lovely. Just use that one hand, crush it up. And then let's open it with one hand. And we're going to think about the way our muscles develop, from the core strength to the upper body, to the shoulder girdle, to the arm, to the wrist, to the fingers. So open it just with one hand, no shaking, just use your fingers, no shaking. Stretch it out, really think about those movements there. If you've got a really plush piece of paper, I'm sorry, because it's tricky if you've got a really thick piece of paper. Now crush it again. And what I want you to do is we're going to think about that temporal awareness, that object control, and we're just going to throw it and strike it. Can you throw it and strike it? Throw and then hit. Yay! So that's a really simple activity that I do with the children to encourage object control. So thinking about that temporal awareness, thinking about developing the shoulder girdle, crushing up the paper, throwing it in the air, striking, running to fetch it, and then trying it again. And we can try it with the other hand. It's a really simple way to think about object control within terms of fundamental movement skills. When we're thinking about those fundamental movement skills, we really need to think about fun, mystery, and sensory. We want to make sure that there's going to be some engagement, and if there's only going to be engagement if it's going to be fun. So we need to be thinking whether the environment is fun or whether what you're delivering is fun. Is there some mystery? Are they expecting what's going to happen? Can you add that level of mystery? And then thinking about sensory, maybe that's the smell, maybe that's spinning, maybe that's the vestibular, maybe that's proprioceptive, maybe that's touch, maybe that's sound, maybe that's balls with bells inside, or maybe we can make our own ankle bells where we use a pipe cleaner and we thread a piece of string. We have a bell and we thread a pipe cleaner through the bell, and then we attach it to our wrist or our foot, and then we start to jump. So we can find ways to make those fundamental movement skills a little bit more engaging by using fun, mystery, and sensory. And these are the three characteristics for optimal learning experiences in early childhood, which I'm sure you're all aware of. The adult providing the guidance should have a clear learning goal in mind when setting up that activity or that environment. The activity or the interaction should allow children some degree of choice and agency. Like my walk around the room, I'm always saying to the children, let's come up with another idea. What else can we do? Jump, roll, spin, clap, walk backwards, march, slide on our tummies, slither, prowl, whatever it might be. And the adults should be flexible in their use of guidance techniques by using those open-ended questions, hints, prompts, modelling, nudges, scaffolding, all of those terms where we really help to support the children in their learning experience. And here we can see the pedagogical continuum that I spoke about earlier. So we have child-led all the way this side, and then we have all of these stages in between before we get to adult-led. So we really want to think about this pendulum swinging across the pedagogical continuum when we're thinking about physical development and progressing to PE. Oh, sorry. So these are some of the activities that I think in early years settings really help to solidify those physical motor competence opportunities in preparation for PE. So parachute is great. It's often it's delivered as a group activity. It really strengthens the shoulder girdle. The reason I find that some educators don't use the parachute is because sometimes the children can get really excited and go underneath or go on top. So whenever I deliver the parachute, I keep it very short, very succinct, and I will always deliver it very quietly. So we'll come into the space. Everybody find a hand. Let's lift it up. Pull it down. Lift it up. Put it down. And I will change the way I deliver that. And then maybe we will put, this time of year I like to put things like ping pong balls or cotton wool balls for winter and shake the parachute. We can put ball pit balls. We can put teddy bears. I can, for bonfire night, normally I get the children to scrunch up bits of tin foil or recycled thermal blankets. We can roll up odd socks and make sock balls and put them on top of the parachute. So there's lots of things that you can do with the parachute. Recycled bubble wrap also is a really fabulous way to get children moving. We just tape it down on the floor, and then you'll see without any provocations whatsoever, the children will just start jumping and popping the bubbles using their bodies, using their elbows, using their bottoms. I normally play a couple of games with the children. One is, can we travel along without popping the bubbles? And the other one is singing Tommy Thumb, Peter Pointer, Ruby Ring, Toby Tall, Baby Small, and we pop them all with our fingers. Ping pong balls are also really good to use. Practice blowing them. So if you've got a lovely surface, it's hard on carpet, so it would need to be a different floor surface and carpet, but it's getting the children to crawl and blowing the ping pong balls, seeing if they can get them from one space to another And this is really good for the shoulder girdle, for the upper body, and also for increasing their lung capacity. So this is part of that MVPA as they really start to get out of breath with this. And then bringing stories to life. So I'm going to share with you some of the work that I've been doing with Hertfordshire. And this was in an early years setting. I'll just share this content. The lion hunt. Let's place these lion's tails around our waist, carefully shimmy them up. We are thinking about animals in the jungle and in the rainforest. Ask the children to consider and think about what animals we would encounter, think about the sounds. Now we're going to practice being lions. Let's get onto our hands and knees and practice being lions. Get the children to show you their sharp claws and sharp teeth, and use the music to crawl around. As you've continued to crawl around the space, the lions are becoming hungry. So let's practice prowling. Extend to standing and prowling around slowly around the space. As you see your dinner, start to wiggle your bottom and pounce to catch your dinner. Let's all kneel down together and use our teeth to eat our dinner. And finally, the pride of lions all sleep together after their busy day hunting. The Scary Lion's Jungle Journey. Let's make our way through the jungle. Explain to the children that we're going to be different animals as we make our way through the jungle. First of all, let's be monkeys and let's sidestep and make our monkey sounds. Then we continue to tiptoe through the rainforest. Next, we are snakes. Let's get down onto our tummies and slither like snakes. Educators should be really conscious of the vocabulary they're using during this time to extend the movement possibilities. Finally, let's be elephants. Invite the children to also suggest animals at this point. But let's be animals and stomp our feet and raise our trunks. And as we reach deep into the undergrowth of the jungle, we reach inside one of the bushes and we can feel 2 furry ears, a wet nose and sharp teeth. It's a lion! Let's retrace our way back through the jungle. The fabulous song for this piece is Hall of the Mountain King by Grieg. I do apologise for my monotone voice. We did the filming and then they asked me to do the voiceover and I had COVID at the time. And so it just took all my efforts. I sent myself to sleep listening to my voice then. Did you love how the little boy tried to wake me up when I was asleep? Oh, so cute. So we can often, being animals is such a really simple way just to think about those movement opportunities and thinking about MVPA opportunities within our setting. Oh, we don't want to see it again. No, thank you. So what I want you to think about now is, do your children have access to a variety of surfaces and levels? Do your children have time without shoes and socks? And can your children access the following: swinging, hanging, climbing, pushing, pulling, spinning, twisting, digging, running, rolling, and spinning twice. Spinning twice. That's because spinning is really important. Okay, any reflections? Anybody like to share anything?
We were just saying, sorry.
No, go for it, Leslie.
We were just saying how much it's made us think this morning of all the sort of old-fashioned, if you like, traditional ways of teaching physical development that probably we experienced that have sort of become, I don't know, they've disappeared because we've tended to favour the immersion in the wooded areas and the forest school life and all of that. And it's that tendency to see that as a great aspect of physical development without the intentional targeted teaching, isn't it, that we've sort of lost along the way, because a lot of the pedagogical models don't favour that intentional targeted teaching.
But actually there's space for both. Well,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know, we definitely need to have opportunities for intentional
And it's great to be reminded of that and to actually sort of celebrate it because, you know, it is our responsibility to teach children those skills and not just assume that they will acquire them
Mm,
because not all children do they?
no, absolutely lovely. Thank you, Leslie. Over to you, Liz.
Yeah, I think myself and Sarah were talking about obviously depending on the setting will depend on what kind of access you can have to different surfaces and levels. But sometimes in my experience, there's also a level of anxiety around health and safety and children tripping or there being hazards there particularly. We talked about the anxiety sometimes practitioners might have around spinning. When you were spinning earlier, that made me smile because I could just hear people kind of saying, "Oh, well, what if they bump into each other?"
Mm,
Um, and also the I suppose the professional knowledge of practitioners, if they know they're all different types of activities that are useful for children and help that physical development, or if that's just not something that they're aware of, and that kind of the language of gross and fine motor skills is the bit that they know, but they don't necessarily know what that means,
mm,
in terms of the actual gross motor skills and the things to help them to help children develop. So yeah, I think that the level bit I've got experience of and it was a school who wanted to completely flatten their outdoor area because there were so many levels to it that they were worried about the children having, trips and falls and accidents and those types of things. So yeah, it's just an interesting observation that it's a concern sometimes to people.
yeah, no, absolutely, you're right. And we can get a little bit lost in that health and safety world, can't we? But if we ensure that we have a physical activity policy in place, this is often what I have conversations with schools and with Mats, is that we've got a risk assessment policy, which is looking at it from the negative pathogenic lens. But what about a physical activity policy? Where's our policy to show that we're going to be going outside in all weathers? We're going to be letting children explore rolling, spinning, climbing, hanging upside down, jumping, running. We're going to let them know what it's like to be upside down. We're going to be offering them those opportunities. And if families know that, and we've got that in our policy and everybody signed that policy, it almost gives educators a little bit more permission to have that physical activity. And I think that's sometimes where we see that deficit coming, is because of that permission. And in terms of spinning, so adults, we can't, unless we're trained ballerinas and we're practice spotting, we can't spin for long. But young children can spin for up to 10 seconds, which is significantly longer than us. So yes, spinning's great for their regulation. Let's continue. Just conscious of the time. I think I've got 20 minutes of content in 4 minutes. Here we go. We can get through this. Here I am with some bubble wrap with some children. We're practicing rolling across the floor. We did have another roll, but it went missing because I wouldn't normally advocate for some children watching while some of us are rolling. So I did have 2 other rolls where we could all roll together. And thinking about stage of development, obviously in early childhood we look at stages, not age of development, and we want to think about those observation checkpoints from Development Matters. So looking at around their second birthday, can the toddler run well, kick a ball and jump with both feet off the ground? If they can't do that jumping, pillowcases are great for encouraging 2 feet jumping, because when you've got your feet in a pillowcase, it's the only thing you can do is jump with 2 feet. And around their 3rd birthday, can the child climb confidently, catch a large ball and pedal a tricycle? Well, if they haven't been in an environment to do that, they're not going to be able to do that. So are we facilitating these opportunities? And we need to be looking out for those children who find it difficult to sit comfortably on chairs. But this is in Development Matters, but I would actually advocate that they shouldn't really be sitting for long periods of time anyway in early childhood. Maybe once they get to age 5, 6 and 7, but certainly younger than that, we should be reducing the time being sedentary. And I just want to share with you some of the research I did at CREC. And this was the PRISM framework that I worked with Chris Pascal on this approach. So the PRISM The approach aims to support all children's physical development and movement competencies, increase confidence in their overall abilities, extend social interaction, encourage the transfer of skills between lived experiences and within the early years setting. And focusing on these aims will enhance physical competence and support emotional resilience. And this is the PRISM framework that I developed. So looking at physical play, have we got lots of opportunities for that really heavy physical play opportunities, really thinking about that MVPA, thinking about different levels, thinking about object control, thinking about locomotor, thinking about balance and body management. Is there repetition? That's how we learn. That's how children consolidate those movements. So thinking about repetition, and we can have that within something called motor schema, obviously drawing on Piaget's work, but adding Schmidt's work on motor schema, where we're practicing different skills in a different variety of contexts. Are we developing their imaginations? Are we really capturing their imaginations in what we're delivering as well? Children have those fantastic imaginations, so let's explore, let's be creative. Let's draw on all of the 8 sensory systems when we're thinking about physical activity. And let's celebrate mastery when it's achieved. Let's celebrate those times when they really do achieve and master certain physical competencies. And then this was the action research project that I did. And this was with 8 reception classes for maintained nursery settings. And I saw them all for 1 hour a week over 6 weeks. And this was the data that was gathered. The blue line was the pre-intervention and the red line was the post-intervention against development matters early learning goals. And you can see huge gains in physical development, but also in communication, language and understanding of the world. And we also measured against the Draw a Person Good Enough Harris tool and also Leuven-Frere's scale of wellbeing and involvement. We can see a big difference there in terms of motor competence, but also in terms of measuring sense of self. So in terms of reflections, do you know the children you teach? Do you know what they can do? You've met them where they are. Do you know about their engagement? Do you know about their listening attention? Do you know whether they can hop, crawl, roll? Do you know if they did crawl? Maybe they missed out on that development milestone. Maybe they missed out on transfer of hands as a development milestone. Do we know that? Can we revisit that? Can we educate parents and carers on the importance of movement? Can we increase and diversify the stimuli that's available for families and for children? Use my fundamental movement skills, fun, mystery, sensory, within your fundamental movement skills. Develop those reciprocal relationships and remember the role that you play in children's relationship with movement. Are you a good ambassador for movement and physical activity? Introduce more purposeful movement. Think about those activities and games. One of my favourite ones, Leslie said about in the olden days, is In and Out the Dusty Bluebells. I don't know if anyone's old enough to know that one, but In and Out the Dusty Bluebells is a fantastic one where we weave in and out, shoulder girdle, lots of fun and lots of skills being developed in such a simple activity. Remember, stage not age. Reduce sedentary time, reduce exposure to digital technology, more outdoor physical play, be more active yourself and include those active learning opportunities. Bring those stories to life. And my final slide of the presentation is, are you worthy of imitation? And this is how I end all my presentations because this is what really matters. If you work with young people, we really need to make sure that we are worthy of being imitated by them because they will, whether we like it or not, they will imitate us. So are you worthy of their imitation? Now, if you haven't already done so, this is a free activities download resource link that I have on my website. So feel free to use your phones and access that QR code. It will ask you to fill in your details because of GDPR, and then we will email you a list of music that will help support your provision and get children moving and active. And this is a recently launched project called the Early Years Playthings cards that I've developed with Community Playthings. And what's great about these cards is it's from babies upwards. So there are 50 cards in the pack, and these cards support baby movers, early walkers and confident walkers. So it's developed, it's separated into those stages of movements. and it's a fabulous resource. So there we are. And finally, another QR code. In June next year, I will be delivering my first conference with the fabulous Ruth Lequie. If you are interested in moving and play, please come and join us at Aston University. It would be lovely to have you there. We're going to be talking about all things movement and play. We've got some amazing guest speakers and some lovely goodie bags as well. And here I am on social media, and I will stop for questions.
So a huge thank you to you. It's been a really informative session and a wonderful opportunity for us to reflect on our intentional opportunities that we provide for our children to develop physically. So thank you.